Well, the Ohio State Buckeyes won the championship, of course. Now they're getting poached. I want to talk about that a little bit. And of course, SEC basketball is going to be getting my attention here. What happened to Big Ten hoops and all of its domination? It's time for the Lockdown Big Ten Squad.
You're talking ball with the Big Ten Squad, sponsored by Game Time. From USC to Ohio State, from Michigan to Oregon, from Nebraska to Washington, it's the local experts of the Locked On Podcast Network bringing you scoops, breakdowns, and the most comprehensive preview of the upcoming Big Ten weekend. No hurt feelings and thin skin allowed. Squad up, you're part of the Big Ten Squad.
Welcome to the Locked On Big Ten Squad. I'm Craig Shemon. Sit back, relax, and enjoy as we mix it up a little bit. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. All right, we got Jay Stevens, Locked On Buckeyes, national champions. We got Mark from Locked On Trojans. We've got Zach Seyko. Oh, he just popped in from Locked On Nittany Lions. Zach Anderson-Yoxmeyer from Locked On UCLA, and Spencer McLaughlin from Locked On Ducks and Locked On College Football. Gentlemen, good to have you here. I want to start off by talking about all this poaching going on here, Jay. When you win, people want you.
Yeah, you're a thief, Zach. I see you in the corner. You're a thief.
What's up, Jay?
Yeah,
You took
what's
the defense
up?
coordinator. You took the guy who wanted to stay on staff. You're a thief.
What's up?
Yeah,
We got the best defensive coordinator in college football.
You stole
and outbid Ohio State, outbid Oklahoma, and created the best coordinator duo in the entire country between Andy Kotelnicki and Locked On Sooners is probably sick and tired of Penn State at this point, because that's the two coordinators that they wanted in each of the past two off seasons, and they lose out to the Nittany Lions. So,
yeah,
I'm still the head coach, though, right?
well, yeah.
he beat Lincoln Riley.
So, hey, Jay, let me ask you. Jay, I want to ask you about this. So they paid him $3.1 million a year. I believe Ohio State also made him an offer, but was this just a case of a guy just wanting to go back to his roots in Philadelphia, go back to the state of Pennsylvania? Is that why you lost Knowles?
It seemed like there was some more outside of that being his home state that kind of pulled him to Penn State. Just a year ago, actually, he was trying to go back out east to Duke. He was trying to be their head coach out there. He didn't end up getting that job. And so Jim Knowles is a guy that I think there were things behind the scenes between him and a position coach, and then him and Ryan Day, that kind of led to this happening at the end of the season. There were reports that he reached out to Penn State. There was a report, I don't know if it's been confirmed, but I did hear rumblings that he even reached out to another school prior to the national championship game.
Oklahoma.
And so, thank you. Jim Knowles is a guy that was looking to get out. Now, maybe the Duke thing was maybe you wanted to go back to Duke and be a head coach again. Maybe that's why he entertained that a year ago. But it definitely seemed like this year there was some stuff that happened after the Oregon loss. Ryan Day took a bigger, really more control of the defense and trying to call some things and make some changes that needed to happen, because he didn't want that massive loss where the defense gave up a lot of points and a lot of yards to happen again. And I don't blame Ryan Day. I told Zach this earlier on a crossover we did. I don't blame Ryan Day for going in that room and saying, no, we're changing this right now. You're the head coach. You run everything. If you have to change things, do it now. And I don't care if you hurt anybody's feelings, because you're here to win. You're not here to make friends. And I think that maybe hurt Jim Knowles and maybe rubbed him the wrong way. We all know there was some stuff going on with him and Larry Johnson in regards to behind the scenes, how they were going to use the D-line and not being on the same page. Financially, I think Ohio State could have come up with the money and made him the highest paid defensive coordinator. But I think the stuff behind the scenes is what truly led to Jim Knowles being stolen by Penn State.
Interesting. And Mark, Downtown Lynn was part of this mix too, a former Penn State player. He got a big raise out of this too, because I think he had a conversation with Penn State before they went in the direction they did. But obviously, USC seems to be pretty happy with him in the defense there.
Oh, they're ecstatic. He was the one coach that Lincoln Riley could not afford to lose off of the staff. The turnaround from 2023 to 2024 on that side of the ball, it's not insignificant. You look at just about every metric, USC improved dramatically. And that's why it was so disappointing last year to see, the head coach, who was supposed to be, offensive guru, genius, quarterback guru, to finally have one bad year on offense when he finally had a defense that he's never seen before in his life.
Yeah.
That's why it made last year so disappointing. And absolutely, the fact that Penn State went and took, paid, whatever, how you want to describe Jim Knowles from the Buckeyes to come back to Pennsylvania. He's from Philadelphia, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm Ohio State now, I'm concerned with, do we keep Larry Johnson? Does he want to, right off in the sunset, go back to Penn State where he was before? I mean, these are the domino effects that can start happening. And when you start looking at Ohio State's apparently $37 million in the red in the athletic department, maybe you're starting to see that some of the financial blowback is coming back to haunt you.
Very interesting. Spencer, speaking of poaching, there was a story that Jeremiah Smith was offered $4.5 million to leave. He didn't, but I heard. Is it true that Oregon was trying to get Carnell Tate for about $1 million? Is that true?
They were poking around. I don't think anyone knows what the exact numbers were. I do know that it was in the millions of dollars, which is about what the going rate is in NIL nowadays for a guy of that caliber. And Danny Cannell posted a video that was flying around Twitter last week saying that agents are throwing these numbers out, they're goosing them up, and it's over exaggerated. I can really see that being the case because there are so many actors behind the scenes in this NIL portal world that no one really thinks about, knows. No one even knows what their names are. But they're not accountable to anything. And it's why this is all such a mess, because another thing I don't know that everyone understands is being an agent is a licensed business. You have to have a license. You have to get training. You have to get you have to be a CPA. Right? You have to take a series of tests in order to be an accountant. So those might have been overjuiced a little bit, but I don't know that they're 200-400% over, because I mean, if you're one of the top tier NIL programs in all of college football, and let's say you had $20 million, just as an example number, how much of that would you give to Jeremiah Smith? Jay, if you were given $20 million to last year's roster, how much you giving Jeremiah Smith? It's not under $2 million.
No. Close to a quarter, honestly. He's worth that much money.
Yeah, and so I saw that and thought, it might be a little bit high. But I mean, the idea that teams would poke around and try to get guys of that caliber, no, I'm not surprised at all. I think Oregon's interest in Carnell Tate was real, but I'm not surprised that he was... he ultimately decided to stay there, because who wouldn't want to be the number 2 to Jeremiah Smith? Yeah. How much attention is that guy going to attract on a weekly basis? He's going to be getting, if you have a single high safety defensive play call, in what world is that safety not getting rolled to Jeremiah Smith and leaving everybody else one-on-one?
Yeah. Zach Anderson, Yoxmar, I want to get you in on this conversation. I know UCLA is at a different level. In fact, I actually know personally one of your guys that are in charge of your name, image, and likeness collective over there. But I don't know if you guys trying to poach anybody. Any good rumors out there in UCLA?
I mean, the only stealing that's happened, let's see. Jay stole our head coach. Mark, you took our defensive coordinator.
I forgot about that.
You took our quarterback from last year. Zach, well, you're stealing my first name. So I got beat for the whole show.
Zach's staff shops at Walmart.
That was classic. All right. Hey, believe it or not, we got a signing day coming up. I want to just do a rapid fire around the clock here. Any guys that you guys are looking in? Any big news breakers? Any news coming for that first week in February with which was the original true signing day before we had two signing
and it
days.
should be. It should be. I don't know why we did this. I don't know who asked for it or why we got rid of it. But I think all of us in the year-round content creation business would much rather have signing day in February.
Yes.
Figure it. It's also better for college football as a whole. But most importantly, it's better for the 6 of us and everyone else at our network. Yes. So figure it out.
No question. Well, Spencer, since you're rolling here, who's Oregon looking at? Any high schoolers in the state of Oregon?
No, I think their 25 class is done. They're on to the 26 class, and they're off to a really strong start there. But there are a lot of different names. Ryder Lyons is a guy, a quarterback that they're looking at who's a Mission kid, might not be on campus till 27. But I mean, I also saw a tweet the other day from someone over at 24/7 that Oregon is either scouting or has offered a scholarship to a 2027 recruit. Like, wow. This is just the way that it goes. And I mean, you start building the 2026 recruiting class right now for the most part, because 25 is basically done. You could have, I think there were, post February last year, I think there have been, or over the last couple seasons, there have been a couple kids that Oregon has added, but really they've done it mostly on the early signing window. And then they've used this time, before the recruiting shutdown to start laying the groundwork, and they're swinging big in 2026.
Zach Anderson, is UCLA sticking in the state of California? Or are they looking elsewhere outside the state of UCLA?
I mean, there's been pictures of their guys going out and recruiting in the state of Florida. So maybe the downfall of, Florida a little bit, if Billy Napier falls down, if Miami, who knows what's going to happen in the state of Florida with all those close football teams right now. But the Bruins are hitting Florida pretty hard right now. And Florida State saw Brady Smeagol decommit. Maybe UCLA gets in on that action as a 2026 quarterback. Who knows?
Zach Seyko, how about Penn State? Where are you guys zeroing in your efforts for next week?
If I had to throw out a name just to, talk about something, Zahir Mathis is still a player of interest. He was committed to Ohio State once upon a time. Not sure what fell apart there. I think other schools were interested in his recruitment, and Ohio State started pursuing some other defensive linemen. Penn State is at least in contact with him. I think he's down to 5 or 6 schools. He's probably going to go to the ACC or the SEC, but it's kind of a don't count out Penn State. I think if Penn State and Zahir Mathis can come to some common terms, he very well might sign with the Nittany Lions, but I'd say that's kind of, more unlikely than it is likely at that point for the defensive end. And he's from Pennsylvania.
Jay Stevens, Buckeyes, another top 5 class.
Yeah, another top 5 class. The class is pretty much wrapped up. They're not doing anything with the 2025 cycle. They're out recruiting right now while they can. Chip Kelly, the coach that was stolen from UCLA, he was actually out in California recruiting and looking at a couple of quarterbacks. It's weird.
Chip Kelly was recruiting. I need photographic evidence. I need photographic evidence.
It's weird, man. He was recruiting. He wasn't out at the national championship celebration. So when Knowles wasn't there, there's rumblings that he may not be there in 2025. With Chip Kelly not being there either, I was thinking, well, maybe both coordinators are gone. But there have been pictures of Chip Kelly in Cali, in Illinois, on the recruiting trail, and I'm surprised like everybody else. I thought Chip Kelly didn't recruit, but here we are.
Picture it didn't happen.
Yeah. And he flipped a quarterback at Florida that was going to Florida State, too. I know he was recruiting in Florida, too. Mark, Trojans, where are they zeroing in on?
Well, I'm just wondering if Chip Kelly's in those states, do any of those professional and NFL teams have offensive coordinator positions open? Just saying.
Yeah.
Out there. There's one guy that USC is looking to add to their 2025 class, linebacker, AJ Tuatelli. He was originally committed to Wazoo, the Washington State Cougars. That looks like to be the name that you will see bring in on February signing day. Other than that, they're pretty much focused on 2026 right now. On Saturday, they're looking to host a gang of 2026 prospects. So we'll see how that turns out. And it's going to give their new general manager a chance to kind of dip his toes in the water and see how good he is at his job.
Well, that's fair enough there. All right, I want to switch tables just a little bit. We'll come back in 1 minute. I want to talk about basketball. Seems like the SEC is grabbing all the headlines with college hoops. We'll talk about that as the Locked On Big Ten squad continues. Let me tell you about Game Time. Game Time is a great way to get tickets and get you in the seats to go watch exciting games. Super Bowl, go check it out. Or concerts or comedy shows. Just the whole energy and excitement of being at an event. If it needs a ticket, you can get it at Game Time. Download the Game Time app on your device or your phone. And Game Time makes it easier to create unforgettable memories with the new feature, Game Time Picks. It filters out all the fluff and the shows that you only see the best deals right there. Great seats, and you can focus on where you are looking. I love the fact that you can see a picture from the seat of the ticket you're about to buy. It's one of the greatest features that they have. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Back on the Big Ten squad here. I'm going to switch gears. We talk a lot of football here. We will always talk a lot of football here. But, March Madness is right around the corner, and I was actually just for fun, just cruising around standings and all that kind of stuff and kind of getting boned up for March Madness. And I'm looking at the SEC standings, guys, and their first 10 teams are all ranked in the top 25. I mean, it definitely is their year. Auburn and Alabama are great. The Big Ten, not so much. Been a bit of a championship drought as well. Kind of like your thoughts on all of that as well. I know Michigan State's kind of red hot right now, but when I was growing up, Big Ten basketball was a big deal. Jay, I'll start with you. What's the difference? It seems like the SEC made a concerted effort to not just be a football conference. Now they're everything, and their basketball is sky high right now.
The basketball is sky high. This has been a trend for the Big Ten for a few years now, not just the national championship drought, which I think goes back to Michigan State in 99 or 2000. I think it goes back 20 or 25 years. This is the last time a Big Ten team has actually won a national championship in basketball, which is rare. A lot of it's coaching. I know, to me, if I want to go and play basketball in the Big Ten, I'm going to Michigan State first. I'm an Indiana guy. I wouldn't try to go to IU to play basketball. I like Matt Painter. My grades couldn't get me into school at Purdue. And so I have to try to figure out where things are there. But it's weird. A lot of it's coaching. A lot of it's guys wanting to play with their friends. But Big Ten basketball's fallen off. I don't have a finger. I can't put a finger on it outside of they're getting it done with the coaching. I mean, Bruce Pearl's done a great job over there. And he's not the only coach down there in the South that's been pushing all the right buttons.
Mark, how about a West Coast perspective from what you see here? The difference between the Big Ten, not quite up to the SEC standards right now.
Yeah, how often do you talk about SEC basketball and Kentucky's like maybe the third or fourth name that you bring up?
Yeah.
That's how odd it is. So I don't know. Maybe it's just one of those cycles that we're going through right now where the SEC doesn't own football anymore because everybody gets to pay players and it's kind of leveled the playing field. I'm not sure what exactly or why the Big Ten's void has happened with national championships in basketball, but I can tell you this. Big Ten's not going to win one this year. UCLA is not going to win one. I know USC's not even going to be in the tournament. So it's just another year of, maybe the SEC will, get to the Final Four again, but, it is what it is.
Yeah. Zach Seyko, what's your best theory? What's going on here with hoops?
I'm more interested and preoccupied with number 1 versus number 2 in wrestling. Penn State's taking on Iowa. So that's where my attention is for this week, besides the Jim Knowles banter. I've gone on rants about men's basketball. There's just not a lot of intrigue up here, and I guess for a good reason, because there was tournament aspirations. They absolutely handled Purdue early in the Big Ten slate, and then just kind of have progressively fallen off since, which is strange because this is a veteran team that has played a lot of basketball, period, but also the nucleus came back for the second season. So Penn State was supposed to take a step forward, same coaching staff, same nucleus. They didn't. So it's kind of reflective of overall in the Big Ten as well, why the Big Ten Conference took a step back. I mean, it's the same thing. I think that basketball rosters are going to be a lot easier to manage because it's 14 scholarships and then a few walk-ons versus, what's going to be 105 in football, if I'm not mistaken. So SEC country just has basketball figured out. And I'm confident that Michigan State and Purdue and all those teams, I won't count out the Big Ten from completely, there's no way that they make a Final Four, but I also think that there's also a shift with the, traveling to UCLA, USC, cross country like that as well. I mean, this is the first time at football. It's different because you have a whole week to prepare. Mm-hmm. Whereas basketball, you're going to have a midweek game and you might be out there for multiple days the way that Penn State's doing it. They have UCLA and USC coming up. And so that trip is extended out there. So I think the logistics are different for basketball as well. I don't know that the SEC doesn't have to travel as far either, cross country like that.
Zach, I'll also tell you, I was going through hundreds of comments on my YouTube page at Locked On Big Ten, and there was one guy says, "Hey, you call yourself Locked On Big Ten. Why aren't you covering Penn State wrestling?" Yeah, I'm sending him to you because I know you do a great job with it. I've seen you get a lot of views, and I know it's a big deal there at Penn State. I'll let you handle it. You're the expert on that.
If you ever need me for a segment, I'm happy to chat Penn State wrestling on your show, Craig.
You might have to walk me through that a little bit. Zach Anderson, look, UCLA basketball's been a big deal there historically. What's your view on the Big Ten not quite being up to snuff?
Well, it seems like we got a lot of hate on Big Ten basketball. I'm going to throw some shade on the SEC basketball. I know the top of the conference is spectacular. I looked at their latest bracketology from Joe Lunardi. He had 13 SEC teams in there. I don't believe in the ultimate depth of the SEC. I think their depth is overrated. Now, the top part of the conference, really good. But we're, as Zach Seyko mentioned, the travel, right? UCLA, USC, they got to go all the way east to go play the Marylands and the Rutgers of the world, or Penn State, depending on how the schedule's, right? Or vice versa. And UCLA saw that early. They had to go to Nebraska, come play at home against Michigan, and then go to the East Coast and then back. And they've seen in the month of January a 4-game winning streak and a 4-game losing streak. The Bruins are currently on a heater. And let's not forget about women's basketball, too, because, hey, we're waiting until February 13th when we see Lauren Betts versus Juju Watkins. That could be another debate. I know we're talking men's basketball right now. I think the Bruins have figured something out. They have a 7-3 Spaniard. UCLA have been playing terribly, getting owned in the paint. I'm a little more optimistic. I know Mark doesn't like the Bruins because UCLA just beat USC last night without UCLA's leading scorer. But I could see where the hesitation for UCLA's deep run potential is there. I also see the optimism that the Bruins have found an option with the 7-3 unicorn in the middle. You've got some potential with the leading scorer coming back. But with all the travel, is that going to hurt come tournament time? Will they be just beaten up, specifically the West Coast schools like the UCLAs, the Oregons of the world that are expected to make the tournament? Or will that turn into something that they've played so many good teams and that'll just make them much better and go on a deep run?
Just be glad that USC couldn't make a free throw and that you had the Kansas City Chiefs officiating crew doing that game.
Well, let me tell you, UCLA can't make free throws either. They finally made
them last night.
They did. So I was like, but they did go through that stretch where they could make some, and then USC couldn't make them.
And they got outscored in the paint. It was just whatever. You guys got the win.
I got you. All right, I tell you what.
You get the basketball win.
It's funny you mentioned the Chiefs, and I know Zach Seyko is excited about Saquon Barkley and the Eagles. We're going to do something a little different in just 1 minute. I want to get these guys Super Bowl predictions. All right, that's coming up next on the Locked On Big Ten Squad. Back on the Locked On Big Ten Squad. All right, a little something different this time here. We're going to jump in with these guys. They're sports fans, just like everybody else.
We are.
Let's get some Super Bowl predictions here. Jay Stevens, let's start with you. Chiefs and Eagles. And by the way, I'll argue that for a lot of people, this is probably the least favorite matchup. I don't know that there are a lot of Eagles fans out of Pennsylvania, and I know people are tired of the Chiefs, but this is what we have. A rematch from a Super Bowl a couple of years ago. Jay, which way is it going to go?
Let's go with the Eagles. I am a person just going away from football right now, kind of. Not no analysis. I'm tired of seeing the Chiefs in it. To me, it's giving Tom Brady Patriots vibes. Of course, Tom Brady is a guy that kind of ruined my childhood, as I called it, because he kept the Colts out of making playoff runs when I was a kid. But I want to see Saquon Barkley win it. I do like Jalen Hurts. I think that team is rolling right now. They're playing phenomenal football. And I am going for the Eagles for reasons that aren't football reasons. I just don't want to see the Chiefs win.
That's fair enough. Mark, who's going to win this game?
Better question is, Mark, does Mark care who wins the game? As far as having a rooting interest, you've got Juju Smith-Schuster, who is a wide receiver for the Chiefs, who played at USC. So I'd like to see him put a ring on his finger. But other than that, like I said, as long as Patrick Mahomes has his own personal security detail wearing pinstripes, Philadelphia can play the best game of the season.
Yeah. And
I just don't know if they have enough to get by.
Spencer's back. Spencer, did you get done what you needed to get done in 9 minutes?
There was a much better way to phrase that, but yes, I recorded a segment on another show. Boy,
poor audio listeners.
Man. If you were about to ask me about the Super Bowl, fly Eagles fly. I'm not an Eagles fan. I am a fan of a different bird in the NFC, that being the Seahawks. But I kind of go back and forth. On the one hand, it would be cool to watch a three-peat happen because it's so insanely difficult. On the other hand, it doesn't fit the mold for what we would like a three-peat to look like. Mm-hmm. So just in the there's so much about it, and I know that on the one hand, yes, it gets overblown. I know there are data points out there that people have cited, like, hey, the Chiefs get called for it, and there are also ones that show, yeah, their opponents are called for more roughing the passer and unnecessary roughness penalties than they are in the playoff run. I don't think that the NFL is rigged in favor of the Chiefs. I do believe that the officials clearly don't want Patrick Mahomes to get hurt. Mm-hmm. And that has impacted the way they call things, and people have allowed bad calls, I think, to stick in their mind more than, you know, bad calls that go the other way against the narrative that people have formed, but they're seeking confirmation bias. It just gets harder and harder for me to completely push aside, yeah, they just want the Chiefs to win, when the Bills make the first down marker twice and we all see it, and then they aren't given the first down. It's like, guys, you're just... Like, the NFL is so aware of it. They had Gene Steratore in the booth the entire game as like a third member of the primary tandem. I've never seen that before. It's like they're aware, hey, we're going to show you that these calls are not just going in the Chiefs' favor. And then Gene went out there time after time and said, yeah, no, the Chiefs caught a break there.
Yeah.
It's like, right, guys.
That was bad.
This did not have the effect you were thinking about.
No.
Don't believe your lying eyes, right?
Yes. Zach Seyko, who's winning the Super Bowl?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. We're talking about this a little more than a week early. I'd like to see the injury reports. I'm going to go with the Eagles because I think the weaknesses that they had the first time around, or if there were any, you know, there's not many, or the lack of strengths, if you will, they have more options, right? Saquon Barkley is better than a Miles Sanders. You have a little bit better chemistry, and it's crazy to think with all the reports about how A.J. Brown's frustrated, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert came back from injury, offensive line is in sync. Got to give the Chiefs credit because they dealt with a fair share of injuries and they still were able to overcome them. Chris Jones makes a good point about how the reason we're still at the top of our game, especially on defense, is because NFL franchises refuse to hire away Steve Spagnuolo, who arguably is at least the most consistent defensive coordinator. I don't know what it is for me personally. Maybe it's because Penn State made it as far as they did in the postseason, the expanded college football playoff. There was just more excitement around this season for college football. This is the least interested that I've been in the NFL overall. Ben Roethlisberger retires. I kind of retire my Steelers fandom with it. I don't care with it because they're the definition of insanity right there. But I have no personal ill feelings about the team across the state and the Philadelphia Eagles one way or another. I'm rooting for Saquon Barkley and Jahan Dotson in this case. It's not about the team from Pennsylvania. It's not about hating Patrick Mahomes. I'd like to. They are very much like the Patriots of the 2000s, 2010s. This is kind of what we're seeing in real time here. So if they can kind of disrupt that, I have no issue with it. But I have no rooting interest in it. Period. The NFL is losing my interest, but they keep gaining viewers, so they don't care about me.
Zach Anderson, I know the game's still another week away. Final word from you.
Well, I got a couple of things. One, the over-under of Taylor Swift appearances during the broadcast. Two, can you retire your fandom, Seyko? I'm a Raiders fan, so I guess I'm well past that. Mark, can your boy help me over here in Vegas? Like, what's going on? And then three, as a Raiders fan, you obviously know which way I'm going to swing. I don't really want Philadelphia to win. They blew it 2 years ago, and now I'm saying, fly Eagles fly. I don't want to say it, but I don't want I don't want anything to happen. I just want the Super Bowl to be forgotten about.
All right. And Roman came in for the last 30 seconds. Yeah. So I'll give him, hey, you got some breaking news or something?
Who are you?
Yeah, I had no idea that Kai Horton was going to commit to Washington. I didn't know they wanted to add a fifth scholarship quarterback at this point in time. So I had to come back in to say two things. One, shout out to Trent McDuffie chasing his third straight Super Bowl ring. I am exhausted by this Chiefs dynasty, but it's great to know that there are more Super Bowl rings for Washington than there are Oregon players in this game. Wow. Had to make sure I got that part in there.
Rent free in the
yeah, that's totally what that is.
Is Shout just blasting in your headphones as motivation right now to keep it on your mind?
That is literally the one thing I wanted to pop in here to say. Outside of that, though, riding with the Eagles, ESGLES Eagles. Shout out to them for that. That was just absolutely incredible. Yeah. Just needed to get those two things in there. Shout out to Brandon for letting me do that.
What do you think the reaction will be if the Chiefs lose and it's just Taylor Swift sobbing in Kelsey's arms?
That would be awesome.
It'd be my favorite television show of the year. Oh, it'd be great.
To our audience, follow and subscribe your favorite Big Ten team. All these guys do a great job for your favorite teams every day. Jay with the Buckeyes, Mark with the Trojans, Zach with UCLA, Roman with Washington, Spencer with the Ducks, and Zach with the Nittany Lions. I'm Craig Shemon from Locked On Big Ten. We got you covered for the whole conference. Check us out, your favorite team every day throughout the season. And always check us out with the squad. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll talk to you next time for the Locked On Big Ten squad. I'm Craig Shemon.